wants to know, if you are elected, your mandate is to represent all the people on the island, not just a select few. How will you collect valid demographic information as well as information about the vision that most people have for Pender Island so that your decision-making won't be skewed or biased? Diane?
That's a long question. I think the decision-making has to come about as a really good consultation with all the people who are involved, are concerned. It needs to be a community decision and with a lot of information brought in. I'm not sure what else I would say to that.
Thanks. Ken?
We do collect indicator data at the Islands Trust. We have an indicator program. So the reference to demographic information, we have that. I volunteered for a year with the Economic Development Commission and did a study actually on quality of life issues and collected all the baseline economic data for the first time into one document that determines the community's vision. A fellow went out and asked people about what they value here, what are the amenities that are important to them. I think you can do it in a very informal way, you can do it in an ad hoc way, but I think first of all, you need to make an informed, structured effort to engage with people. And I think we've done that.
Thank you. Derek?
The challenge of demographics is that we have a federal government that's kind of undermined our ability to collect that information, so it's become increasingly difficult. But Ken's right, through the Economic Development Commission, we've been trying to get that information. As far as opinion and getting a sense of where the community's at, I think it's probably incumbent upon us to actually create forums that aren't places where we're just making decisions about business. And there are places for us to come together to discuss issues in a reasonable manner. And I'm really interested in exploring what that looks like. And how do we get people like this number of people, this variety of people, into a room to talk about things that matter to us.
Gary?
There's two parts to that question, I think, isn't there? Could you reread it?
If you're elected, all the people on the island, not just a few. I'll start at the beginning. If you're elected, your mandate is to represent all the people on the island, not just a few. How will you collect valid demographic information as well as information about the vision that most people have for Pender Island so that your decision-making won't be skewed or biased?
Well, on the technical side, I think previous answers have given the answer. That's a little more difficult now, thanks to our federal government, but let me speak to the other side. It's very important in a small community not to make decisions based on what someone looks like, or what color they are, or whether you like them or not, or whether they are important or unimportant, or whether they're perceived to be something or they're perceived to be something else. It's really difficult in a small community to maintain a focus on decision making that has the community make decisions about the merits of a proposition and the land use implications of the proposition and leave aside personalities. And that's very difficult, and it's something that I work at every day.
Harbor and the associated negative impact upon future employment opportunities if the resort was not to proceed. And that's from Graham Boffey. Ken, please, first.
So it sounds like the question was about food composting? Yeah.
Waste management.
Or waste management in general, where there's some misunderstanding out there about a current proposal. One is that garbage would be sorted on the site. The genesis of that whole discussion is Heartland landfill is planning to ban food waste. So that means all garbage has to be sorted before it's bagged and leaves your property. And that would either be composted in an in-ground composter that you can get at the recycle, or it would be put into a separate container. This proposal is about taking that, putting it in an earth tub or a similar type of technology and turning it into compost to use for the island. The perceived impacts were apparently, I didn't get there, but we were bashed at a meeting a week ago about smell. The concern is not well-founded.
Diane?
I think it's a hot topic right now. There's obvious confusion about the whole issue of what's happening down by the port grounding. It needs a lot of consultation. I think there needs to be a huge program put together. Our recycling is losing half of their funding. We need waste management, waste transfer, and waste composting, and they all need to be working together. There is the situation where there's waste transfer right now, and there's just a huge amount of confusion on the island from everybody I've talked to about that, and I think it needs much, much more consultation.
Gary?
Well, I'm not too comfortable getting into all the details on that application because we're still in the information gathering phase, so there's still more information to come. But what I do want to say is the Capital Regional District is currently getting to the end of phase 2 of a 3-phase development of a waste management plan. And the North Pender Local Trust Committee is the only local trust committee that has to be included in that plan. And so we're participating there. And we support the CRD's development of a plan. And we also believe that all of the waste management issues on Pender, from recycling funding to the changes in Heartland Dump and the changes that, all of that has to be tied together, but we'll make a decision on the land use portion only in the Islands Trust.
Derek?
I think this is one of the challenges that we have when we don't take a strategic approach to waste management. I think we need to take a bit of a step back and look at what this involves and what these various technologies and the location of them would involve. Just to be clear, I compost. We run a farm, we live by the ocean, we don't stink, and we don't leach stuff into the ocean. So there are ways, and I think we had a meeting last week by Net Zero, made a presentation about the various kinds of technologies that are available to us. And I think it's helpful for us to facilitate a conversation about what that looks like, where they would go. And I don't think it's fair that we're putting the onus on operators to figure that out for us.
Thank you. The next question is from Sue Bailey, and she asks, how would your personal income sources from business or local government affect your decision-making when carrying out your duties as a trustee? Derek?
How did I know this was coming soon? It wouldn't. And if it did, if there was a conflict, I would step away from the table and not participate in a decision, just to be absolutely clear.
Gary?
It wouldn't. I don't have any other income other than my pension and I guess it's referred to as the stipend from the Islands Trust, so it would not.
Ken?
Short answer, it's pretty difficult to conceive how it would not.
Diane?
It would not affect mine either.
We sure saved a lot of time with that question. Liz Montague wants to know, how would you revitalize the economy of our island? Ken?
Well,
Sorry,
I
ask
think-
one question. You're supposed to wait till everybody's had a chance to ask one question before you go to the second one by the same person?
They're
No,
drawn at random, so just as they come up.
I think it's random this time around. Well, the question,
How would you revitalize the economy of the island?
Okay, well, the question presupposes that we're headed for disaster, and I'm not all the way there with that yet. Step one is a strategy, and a strategy's actually been a foundation in the work for a strategy's been done. I don't know that it's about changing the way we do things here in a radical way, and I don't think it's about importing a bunch of people that are going to come and tell us how to do things differently. I think it's about helping people that are almost succeeding and looking at models of business and home-based business and things that people are doing that are doing well, and asking the question, can we do more of that? But it isn't the Islands Trust's responsibility. Full stop. Thanks.
Diane?
There are many things that we can do with this one, and some of them will take time. We need to support and encourage an agricultural and food plan for the island. We need to promote innovative, low-impact businesses that create some employment. We need to create a tourism plan to promote the type of activities we want to encourage and provide regulated and controlled accommodation for visitors. We need to encourage the legalization of suites so they could be rented to low-income families, so there are people there who need the jobs, make the money for it to go around and round on the island.
Thank you. Gary?
Well, first of all, economic development, no one person has the magic wand for an economic development. The legal jurisdiction, of course, lies with our other local government, the Capital Regional District. And that's why the Pender Island Local Trustee Committee has supported the establishment of the Economic Development Commission because we think it's important work. What would we do? Well, I think there are a number of projects in the EDC that are worthy of support. I think that the Islands Trust needs to use its part of the mandate that says we collaborate and connect with other local governments and provincial government agencies to become engaged in that. But the Islands Trust itself cannot on its own do a lot other than deal with zoning questions that would be referred to it by another agency.
Derek?
Great question. I think we do it by working with our partners like the CRD and with the Economic Development Commission. I'm really glad to hear the words of collaboration and working together coming out of our mouths. I think we need to do more of that, and we need to figure out, because we're not in a crisis situation, but it is a difficult place to make a living. Anybody who tells you otherwise, I'd like to talk to them because I found it really challenging, and I know others of my age group and younger are having a difficult time, and we need to address that as a community. Because it's important. It's important for our health and vitality of this place.
The next question is from Maggie McDonald. What is your opinion on affordable and/or seniors housing? Gary?
Well, I've been supportive of it. The local trust committee that I have sat on during the last term has been very supportive of the initiative brought forward on the land next door to the Driftwood. The actual local trust committee, actually by resolution, tried to help the applicants by paying some of the, providing for some of the legal fees and legal costs to help with that project. So we've been very supportive. We understand the need, and that's why in the OCP review, when we revised it, we put a whole new section in on affordable seniors special needs housing. The guidelines are all there. The bylaw is permissive. So we're prepared to support any proposal that makes sense.
Ken?
Well, I guess Gary did refer to the amendments we put in the OCP, which have been duplicated in many different trust areas that provide for affordable and seniors housing. On the executive, we sponsored the cost of the application for the current initiative that's still on the books but is running into some challenges next door to the driftwood there. There's no question that it's an issue, and we've always had an open door and supportive approach to affordable housing.
Derek?
Yeah, this is a really important issue. In 2008, the Trust developed a plan that was facilitated and developed by members of this community. I think we need to revisit that plan to look at affordable and seniors housing. I think we need to work with the CRD, particularly the Housing Trust, to make this happen. This again is one of those things that's a shared responsibility. We're responsible for land use. The CRD is responsible for services. So what does that look like? Where does it go? Where does it make sense?
Diane, please.
Thank you. I think a healthy economy ensures that our community is sustainable to begin with. We need the support services for the seniors, and if we had a healthy economy, they would hopefully be available. Many people providing these services would have some jobs to work at and needed to support their family. The money would circulate in the community. The main thing is seniors' property values, if we had a good economic climate, would not be eroded like they are now. They would have something worth value to sell or to live for their families. And I think we need to stimulate the economy for that purpose alone.
The next question is from Sue Bailey, and she asks, currently STVRs are regulated through the use of temporary use permits. Are there other new regulations you would recommend? Derek.
I think it would be to come up with a solution that is developed by this community. And is there a way of doing it through an association? Is there a way for us to come to an agreement of regulating it ourselves? I'm interested in exploring that. I think temporary use permits might be one way to get us part of the way there, but I don't think it's something that we as a government need to be investing in more regulations, because we're having a difficult time providing that kind of oversight, and it's expensive. And I think we have the capacity to figure something out for ourselves.
Gary?
Repeat the question.
Currently, STVRs are regulated through the use of temporary use permits. Are there other new regulations you would recommend?
Well, the question is a little inaccurate in that they could be regulated through temporary use permits. There are currently none issued on Pender. That's because we have no applications. But let me say this. We have looked at, rather than look at the future and making changes, I just want to speak to a change that we made that probably most people don't even realize. There was a lot of legal cottages with a principal dwelling were being used for an STVR purpose. They weren't covered by they weren't permitted. So we changed the bed and breakfast provisions under the home-based business bylaw so that a cottage, a legal cottage, can be rented out to a tourist accommodation. That increased the stock, but it also reduced the problems and reduced the need for policing because the person lives in the big house next door.
Diane, please.
That question.
Sure. Currently, STVRs are regulated through the use of temporary use permits. Are there other new regulations you would recommend?
Actually, there are no short temporary use permits available. Nobody has applied for them. They're expensive. They're onerous for both the trust and the owner. Short-term vacation rentals can be accommodated, I believe, under a regulation permit assumption, something similar to the rental association that's already established on Vancouver Island. And I think we could take good use of that and make it work for here without creating temporary use permits.
Ken.
Here's the technical answer, and I defy any lobby group to argue this. There are only two tools available that provide for a use. And this isn't something Islands Trust came up with, this is true in all of British Columbia, in a rural area. And that is zoning. So, in other words, you would zone that specific property, and henceforth and forevermore, that use could take place there, or temporary use permits. The idea that you can cut a deal with somebody and make up some regulation that the provincial law doesn't allow us to do is a fiction. It can't be done. The other thing that people don't understand is that municipalities get to issue business licenses. Rural areas, local governments, we are not allowed by the province to have a business licensing regime. So two choices, zoning or temporary use permits.
Gail Jameson asks, what is your view on development permit areas for residential lots? Diane.
Development permit uses, or DPAs, are used to manage development. Their use on residential lots was adopted under the OCP. It makes it onerous for the owner and the builder to build on them. The costs are extreme. The delays and the bureaucracy are quite annoying to most of the contractors and the owners. It has made some lots unbuildable, and therefore they have no value in their land. And I think it's time to streamline that process. I think it's not quite accurate at this point.
Derek, please.
Another good question. DPAs are there to manage development, but they can't prevent development. So in reality, they're really an education tool to help property owners make a better decision about what they do in their land. And they're to identify special features and help property owners make better decisions with regards to that. I understand that there are some difficulties with it, and there are costs associated with that. But in the long term, having the insights and support of a professional and from trust staff to look at those features and to be able to incorporate them into a development plan makes a lot of sense.
Ken?
Well, I was a trustee when this program was instituted, and we engaged directly with property owners and took a good long time explaining the objectives. The basis is we identified areas 1 hectare or larger of intact ecosystems remaining. And out of the entire island, we're talking about 12% where there was really and truly an intact ecosystem. And they were 8 different kinds. Once property owners that were really affected by this realized they had bragging rights, they had something very special on their property, and that they could choose to build outside of the development permit area because it doesn't encompass an entire property, and there are no properties being made unbuildable by it. The permit itself permits development. Thank you.
Gary.
Well, Ken's covered part of what I wanted to say, but in having been on the local trust committee since the DPAs went into place, I can't tell you the number of times that property owners have come to me and said, this was really helpful. This actually works. And what we're talking about is saving a very small part of our island, like Ken says, 12%. It's really difficult to talk about a sustainable community and protecting our environment out of one side of your mouth, and then on the other side say, but well, we don't really need any protective measures. We really do, and it's sometimes difficult, but people have, I think, been overall been very welcoming of the provision, and they've been very supportive of its provision.
Thank you. Richard Philpott asks this question. I'd like to hear what you know about the current waste management issues facing the Penders, i.e. recycling challenges, waste transfer station plans, and composting needs. The urgency you place on rectifying these issues and what your solutions look like. Ken?
Yeah, 45 seconds. Whew. Well, as alternate director, 2 years ago I sat at the table with the alliance of all of the recycling centers in the Southern Gulf Islands and tried to explain to the director that there was an impending crisis. The CRD has covered the funding for a year and a half and now is at a crisis point again. The solid waste management plan request made by the committee was not made by the director, it was made specifically by North Pender Island because we understand this is an important issue and we're not going to wait for someone else to ring the alarm. I'd like to say that I hope the Recycling Coalition and members of Pender Recycling have been at that table throughout that solid waste management plan because we're the only island in the Southern Gulf Islands that's included.
Gary?
Oh gee, I think the short answer is participate in the waste management, overall development of waste management plan that the CRD is currently involved with. Make some thoughtful decisions on applications that are before us after we get all the facts, and actually start to look at a community-based plan if we really want to keep the recycling society as our community society. We're going to have to rethink how we structure that and finance that too.
Derek?
Great question, Richard. We need our own strategy. And I think we've been avoiding this for a long time. 2006, when I was a member of the APC and Mike was looking at setting up transfer stations or facilities for collection, that was one of the outcomes of that discussion. We need an overall plan. At that time, the same excuse was given, it's the CRD's responsibility. Well, if elected, I'm going to work with the CRD so that we can have our own plan, so that we have an overall strategy about how we're going to do this, and we're not relying on the goodness and graces of individuals for taking that burden on themselves.
Diane?
Thank you. It is a big problem and it's crunch time and it's time for everybody to get involved, and I think we all have to work together on all of the waste management, waste transfer, waste composting and recycling. It's an important issue that will affect all of us, South Pender, North Pender, and the CRD needs to be well involved with that.
Thank you. Here's a new topic. Michelle Cook asks, what is your strategy to engage children and youth in our community's planning? Derek?
Ask my daughters. I think we have to do that. I think we need to actually engage youth in that question, and one of the challenges, and their parents. We actively encouraged our supporters to bring their kids to this event. I see my daughter. And I see Wendy's daughter. We need to actually, I think we need to have different fora to have that, include that. I think they understand the challenges that we're facing often better than we do. And we need to have the ability to listen and quit saying this is so difficult and creating spaces that are so grumpy and serious. We really need to consider what there are. So that's a fantastic question. So thank you.
Ken?
Well, this seems like a good opportunity to plug the website. If you go to the website, you'll see my platform, and one of the key planks of my platform is to promote a better understanding of the work that the Islands Trust does. And that would include programming and taking some information into the school and getting the adults and the kids to really understand our role, because we spend a lot of time as trustees doing referrals to other agencies. There's explaining to people, as you've heard over and over again today, technically that's not our responsibility, we do planning. So we do have programs, and we have our shoreline education program has a school component that we're going to be sending into the schools for the kids. So there you go.
Thank you. Diane, please.
I'm with Derek. Let's ask the kids. I think they've been excluded far too long. We keep saying, oh, they're going to grow up and leave anyhow. Well, I think the growing up period is a very, very important time for them to learn and have something available to them as well.
And Gary.
Well, I agree. Bring everybody's daughter and sons and consult with the kids. We've talked to teachers, we've consulted on different programs while I've been a trustee. I think we need to do more of that. I think we can do a better job of that. So that's sort of, you know, a pretty straightforward answer that you would expect to hear from anybody. But there are also some other programs and grant programs that we apply for and stuff where we can bring in groups, identified groups, and I think we should pay more attention to some of those opportunities to engage our kids.
It is from Ann Burdett. If elected as a trustee, what would you do to improve the illegal dumping on ALR and rural and residential, commercial, etc. properties? Gary?
Well, it's a concern in the ALR, but bylaw enforcement is driven by, the short answer is enforce the bylaws. If you don't enforce the bylaws, then change them. But under the current bylaws, the bylaw enforcement system is complaint driven. So if nobody complains, an illegality can exist for a long, long time. Once a complaint is filed, there is a process. The process is outside of the local trust committee's control, but the bylaw enforcement officers go up to and including using the court to enforce, because short of that you can't force anyone to do anything. So the previous questions about why enforcement goes the way it does, it's a predefined legal system which should be used in this case.
Diane.
I have to agree with Gary. We need some bylaw enforcement. Unfortunately, there's a lot of places that look like dumps on the island that should probably be cleaned up as well. Whether they're reported or not, I don't know, but we really do need bylaw enforcement.
Ken?
Well, people may not realize that the Agricultural Land Commission has bylaw enforcement officers. So if it is on ALR land, someone needs to ring the alarm on that. That's especially alarming if people are dumping on ALR land, but it's an Agricultural Land Commission jurisdiction, and they do have a bylaw enforcement division. We can proactively enforce at the Islands Trust if it is a matter of environmental risk. So for instance, dumping or burying garbage, we would if our bylaw enforcement officer sees that taking place, we have policies in place that he can proceed without a complaint. That's a serious business, whether it's on ALR or on Islands Trust.
Derek.
Of course I'm against dumping. But I think what's key to this is that the current process is complaint driven. And we're a community of 2,000 people. And it makes it really, really difficult to rat on your neighbors and to speak poorly about them, because it comes back to you. And I think that's one of the reasons why these things are allowed to persist, because we don't want to do that. And I'm interested, and I don't know if this is possible, but I'm interested in finding a way that how the Islands Trust or the CRD can actually take a responsibility for providing that enforcement and that kind of policing. Because it's difficult, particularly in rural communities all over BC, to do that.
Thank you. Michael Simons asks an interesting question. With current build-out, we could double our population to around 5,000. What are the limits to development? Diane.
I'm under the impression that we have a population of around 5,000, and when it's weekends and holidays and such, with people who are not living here full time. I think we have enough land zoned for building. There's a lot of it that's unused as it is, and I think that can be occupied before we even consider any more zoning for new building.
Derek?
That's a great question. I don't know. And this keeps coming up. What is our carrying capacity? And I actually think that we need to invest in that. One of my colleagues at Royal Roads, this is the work that he does is in modeling systems, and looking at island systems are actually a lot more straightforward than looking at somebody, a community on the island, or on the mainland in a larger community. And I think that's something that we need to look at, because we could actually use models like that to be able to see the impact of our decisions, so that we can see without actually having to implement them to see what the outcomes might be. So that's something I'm actually really interested in committing to doing, if elected.
Gary?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is. I do know what the factors that go into that answer are. First is the carrying capacity of the land. You know, do we have enough water and sewer? Do we have the natural capacity for people to live here? Then there's the human-built carrying capacity. You know, does the Magic Lake water and sewer system have the capacity to increase? You know, so that you could go on and list all the factors and things you have to take into account. I think we have to be very careful about how we do it in terms of how we deal with density. I'm opposed to density increases through zoning change. And zoning is the tool we currently have under provincial government regulations, the only tool we have to deal with density. So I think we need to look at additional tools in the future.
Ken?
It seems the subject has been well answered. Basically, the only limit is the zoning that you find in your land use bylaw, and that's what caps build out. And I guess the only other limit, if you want to go beyond that, are the people that are sitting up at the table here. Two of them will have a lot of influence on what the limits are if were they to change. But we use zoning, and I want to echo that we don't know as much as we should about the island's carrying capacity. Thanks.
Thank you. I think this will be the last question, unfortunately. This one, I think, digs a little deeper into the issue we were just talking about. What do you understand by the term sustainable community, and how is it used within the context of the Island Trust Act? That's asked by Sue Bailey. Gary, first, please.
Well, sustainability is, of course, defined by not taking out more than will naturally regenerate. I think we're past a sustainable community right now. I think we've got to change some things. I think we have to reduce our carbon usage. I think there's lots of things we have to do, because I think we're at the edge of sustainability now. And of course, that would not accommodate, sustainability would not accommodate increase in density. It would not accommodate a number of the things that we might like to have, but it might make us look at how we define our community and how we organize our community through various systems, including ones we've talked about today. So sustainability is kicked around a lot, and I think it's generally misunderstood, but under the Islands Trust it's well known.
Derek.
I would disagree. I think we've been spending a lot of time on environmental sustainability, and we haven't been attending to social and economic sustainability within that environmental framework. Understand that the environment is the basis for which we rely on, and our children and their children will rely on. We have to come to terms with how do we do that in a way that doesn't undermine that for future generations. And I think that's the challenge for us as part of the trust, is how do we do this? What does that economy look like? How do we come together as a community? How do we develop the social infrastructure in order to hold that responsibility? And how do we do that in a way that we thrive?
Thank you. And Diane?
Well, I have to agree with everything Derek said there. I think that sustainability means that we make the best use of what we have and improve on it, and just keep our eyes on what the future looks like for our young people and those who are going to follow after us.
Ken, please.
Oh, sustainable. Yes, that's a word I hear so often that I think it's at risk of losing any real meaning at all. The Islands Trust Policy Statement, this is adopted by Trust Council and signed by the Minister. This is the framework for all of our decision making at the Islands Trust. This is the box that we live in that apparently puts too much emphasis on the environment. Sustainable means being capable of being maintained indefinitely. It's capable of meeting environmental, social, and economic needs of current generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So it's not all about changing entirely the way we do business. It's not all about economy. It's not all about a lot of things that I hear rolled into this idea of sustainable.
We do have time for one more question. This is from Kathleen Lightman. In what way will you promote and protect and enhance the unique amenities that our community already has to offer to attract families and professionals who work from home and to retain full-time residents to make this island economically, socially sustainable, viable, an economic, socially sustainable, viable community year-round? Diane.
That's a long question, trying to absorb it all.
Would you like to hear it again?
Please.
In what way will you promote and protect and enhance the unique amenities that our community already has to offer to attract families and professionals who work from home and to retain full-time residents to make this island economically, socially sustainable and a viable community year-round?
Well, I think in order to attract professionals who work from home, they need to have good internet services where that's viable for them. I know it's somewhat limited in some respect compared to the mainland. There's a lot to answer to that one. But I think with having a lot of that available, we can attract more people who will do that, will live here and promote our island, help sustain it, and create a better economy for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Ken?
I talk to people and get to meet people that are new to the island, and I always ask them what attracted you here. I'm curious. And my conclusions are largely that people come here for the place. And if they stay here, it's because of the people. That's what keeps them here. And coming to the island, I came to the island, I knew the island, but I always thought of the island as an egalitarian place where regardless of your background or your income, we're all equal and we treat each other as equals, and that's important. And it's an opportunity to come from wherever you come from and reinvent yourself. And here's the catch. I see people come here and I think they intend to reinvent themselves, but they spend most of their time trying to reinvent the island instead. And that's often at the risk of changing the things that attracted them here in the first place.
There's not much I can add to that except the tool that I would use is the trust policy statement, because the trust policy statement is the framework, and it does provide the tools. The provincial legislation provides the tools to deal with place and people. And I couldn't agree with Trustee Hancock more. Thank you.
Derek.
Another great question. So for me, that box is right here, is our heart. And I'm not proposing things that are radical, other than radical, if in your terms, radical is how we are together. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep working with my mates to do things that are creative and brilliant, that take advantage of the amazing people that live here, the amazing ecology of this place, the history, working with First Nations groups to realize our birthright. And I think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about undermining what's special about this place. We're talking about adding to it.
We're now down to the segment of the program that involves closing statements. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to close. And our first speaker is Gary Steeves.
What a great afternoon it's been. It really is, you know. Just think of the parts of the world where this never happens. And just think about that, you know. We get to look at each other and discuss ideas and think, that guy's out of his mind. Anyway, I'm wasting time. And, you know, or people get to look at me and say, what the heck's he's talking about? But I want to thank the Pender Post for providing this opportunity. It's fabulous. We have choices in this election. You can only tell by the questions and the answers that we do have choices. This is a special place and it has no end of challenges. Who we elect will make decisions for our future. Forget about debating the past. We need to be prepared to examine, discuss, and decide what makes sense. Endless debate is not a very effective way of making decisions. I'm proud of my track record as a trustee. I'm proud I followed the path of, I believe I followed one of logic and fact rather than following the loudest voice. I'm proud that we protected neighborhoods, protected the environment. I'm proud of our work on the ecology and shoreline education. And I'm really proud to have been your trustee. I have to tell you, it's a real honor. So all I'm asking you for is your support. I want to thank you for your candor, your honesty, your criticism, and your support over the years. And I'm asking you on November 15th to vote for me. I'm asking for your support, and I appreciate your support in the past. Thank you so much.
Derek, please.
No, I'm not going to tell you another story. So thank you for your insightful questions and for taking the time to participate in today's meeting. I hope that this has been helpful. I think it is marvelous that we have a fulsome slate of candidates, all of whom embrace the responsibility and the challenge of the Honest Trust mandate. What differentiates us is perhaps more subtle. I would suggest that the difference between us lies in our willingness and ability to move beyond the established and well-understood responsibilities of a local trustee, that of a land use regulator and decision maker, and attend to rebuilding the relationships and trust within our community, within the trust and with other government agencies in a manner that allows us to effectively come together as a small island community to meet the growing challenges of today and tomorrow. Our ability to work together as a community to treat each other with extraordinary respect and kindness is key to our continued and future success as a community. The best way for our community to meet these challenges is to actively cultivate an environment of respect, of openness, creativity, and joy. If elected, my commitment is to focus on building the relationships and trust necessary for our community to move forward in agreement on the issues that you've heard today. I'm excited by what we might achieve by working on these challenges together as a community to realize a better and yes, a brighter future here in North Pender and within the Sailor State. That is why I'm running for the position of local trustee. Take the time to find out more about me, my approach, and this new special thing called the Bright Future Party. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Ken Hancock, please.
Thank you, Alan. On November 15th, I'll be asking for your support to elect me to a third term as local trustee. And I'm running on the premise that I have a record, that you can read about my record, you can ask people, you can hear about my record. And that is about being a thoughtful decision maker and doing my homework and coming ready to meetings and returning phone calls. And I'm not running on a single issue or for a property owner or a lobby group or a special interest group. As a trustee, I always have and always will continue to work for the whole community, for all of you. Certainly one of the great joys of the job is getting to spend time with people who are passionate about the island's future and often take great interest in the work that we do. One of the frustrations is, as I said earlier, that our jurisdiction and role is poorly understood in many circles. And the expectations sometimes are beyond what we can provide in your wildest dreams. If re-elected, I will dedicate myself to promoting a better understanding of the Islands Trust and the work that we do. And we will continue to explore ways to make decision-making processes that we use more inclusive and more widely understood and transparent. I'm looking forward, if re-elected, to North Pender being the first community to really directly engage with seniors and on issues that matter to them. And maybe amending our OCP to bring it up to date for an aging community. And I don't say that in a pejorative way, I'm aging right along with you. People that know me will know that I bring an open mind and an open heart to the work that I do. And I know there's times when everyone will not be happy with decisions made at the Trust Committee. But I want to take this opportunity to thank the Pender Post, to thank the people that are working on the campaign, and to all the others for the kind words and the encouragement. In a perfect world, election campaigns would be all about ideas. And I'm out of time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Finally, Diane Barber.
Thanks everybody for being so patient and listening to all of our babble up here. My platform is very simple. It's called the 3 R's. The first R is to rebalance and trust focus that includes the economy and our community with the protection of our environment. We can do that by carefully considering environmental projects in all land use decisions, by promoting better and more streamlined regulatory practices, by ensuring more responsible use of our tax dollars in trust initiatives, and by ensuring that the 3 critical elements are all included in our deliberations. The second R is to revitalize our local economy. We can do that by promoting a buy local campaign and supporting innovative economic opportunities, by recommending affordable housing options, supporting an agriculture and food plan for our island, and by creating a plan for low-impact, appropriate tourism, and providing regulated and controlled accommodation for visiting families. The third R is to respect the community of North Pender Island. We can do that by actively listening to what people have to say, respecting everyone's opinions, by ensuring trust meetings are conducted in a more respectful manner, by making sure trust meetings are more accessible for community participation, and by ensuring all applications and correspondence to the trust are publicly posted. I'm asking you to help me make a significant change in how our local trust committee operates, a change in demeanor, a broadening of its focus, and most importantly, a change in attitude. I believe that my background and experience can serve our community well. I will serve you with respect and transparency and an invitation to work together as a team. For sustainable community now and in the future, I hope you vote for me. Thank you. Just one more word. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all of us here today, and thanking you, all of you, for taking the time to attend this meeting and the Pender Post for organizing it on such a short notice. Thank you.
Well, I get the last word. There is one final question that I kept reserved for myself because it applied to the meeting. It was from Dale Henning. And the question is, why are the questions and voter participation being very restricted and controlled in this meeting? The Pender Post has used this format for quite some time. It is our mandate to try and answer as many of your questions as we possibly can during the time period that we have. We felt short answers. You got a soundbite from everybody. They all had a chance to reply, and we did get through a very large portion of your questions. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for your patience, your understanding, your respect. We do live in a wonderful community. Thank you.